The world feels a bit toxic and blah these days, doesn't it? The same old people coming up with the same old solutions for big problems that still don't work. We need to change the game. Well, welcome to Women Advancing. Join me, host Kate Byrne, in this dynamic bi-weekly podcast, bringing together female founders, funders, and thought leaders. Listen to the people driving change, how they got there, how you can help, and yep, how you might just be the next one to advance. Proof that all ships rise with women at the helm. That's what happens when Women Advance with Kate Byrne. Hey everyone, it's your host Kate Byrne with Women Advancing. You know, some of the most meaningful businesses don't start with a big grand plan. They start with noticing what's missing from your own lived experience and then trusting the people around you enough to build it together. So on today's Women Advancing, I'm joined by a fave, Katie Begando, who's the founder and CEO of Bluubird, a brand that's built on the idea that influence isn't just for people with massive, huge megaphones. It's really something that we grow collectively through trust, community, and showing up consistently. Katie's story reflects, to me, a real shift in how brands are being built today, not from top down, not alone, but together with a village. And who's in that village? So many different stakeholders. You've got customers, creators, partners, believers, builders who shape the brand and help it grow. In our conversation, we talk about democratizing influence, listening closely to the people you serve, and what it really looks like to build the momentum without losing your center. She's also going to share a few tips of how she herself maintains that center, something that, as many of my listeners know, isn't easy when you're busy building something. We're going to dig into the realities of founding and scaling a consumer brand. Those scrappy decisions that you have to make, the resilience that's required, and the leadership it takes to keep going, when the path isn't linear. And yeah, that's right. You can do it step by step. So if you were building something you really care about and wondering, oh my gosh, how do I grow it in a way that won't kill me, but is also leveraging tech, but is also super strong and incredibly human, this episode is for you. I look forward to hearing what you think about it. Let's dive in. Women Advancing listeners, welcome, welcome, welcome to what I know is going to be an extraordinary edition, because we are talking with none other than the founder and CEO of Bluubird, Katie Begando. And Katie's going to talk a bit about designing a courageous life, building a purpose-driven brand, making some big leaps of faith, and a lot more. So without further ado, Katie, welcome to Women Advancing.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Oh my gosh. All right. I wanted you to share the leap. I mean, how did you get here? You are. How did you get here? Start, leap, jump, share.
Yeah. Happy to talk about the leap. It's funny. I actually had somebody yesterday ask me, like, how do you come up with an idea? And I had this very embarrassing answer of like the fact that I feel like it's been like many years of stumbling to get here. It doesn't necessarily feel like it was a clean jump, but I had kind of I guess a funny career. I spent 10 years doing lots of different things. I started when I graduated from University of Georgia, go Dogs, about 10 years ago. Thought I wanted to go to law school, worked in litigation consulting, had probably the most incredible team I've ever had in my entire life, and spent a couple of years doing that, decided that that was not my journey and wanted to do something completely different, and took a very hard right turn, went and worked at Delta Airlines. Spent a couple years working with putting seats on planes and getting planes over to Asia, which was a really neat job. It also was a very interesting place to be working in March of 2020. And so my job basically was erased overnight. Delta was incredible and kept us all employed, and it was a wonderful place to be in that time, but definitely squirrely. And so I had some test scores in my back pocket. I whipped together an application and very last minute went to business school. So I went to business school at University of Virginia and did not know what I was going to do with my life at all. I had basically had a loose idea that I was going to be figuring it out in the 2 years that I was in Charlottesville. Consulting felt like a very safe place to figure it out. I guess like a way to continue the figuring it out journey. And it was also going to be supportive of the fact that I was financially supporting myself in business school. So that was something that felt like lower risk than other alternatives. But I was very entrepreneurship curious. I had taken lots of classes. I had always kind of poked around with ideas. It's funny, when I was talking to my mom recently, she reminded me that when I was in elementary school and people would talk about what they wanted to be when they grew up, everyone would say, doctor, scientist, all these things. And I said that I wanted to own a coffee shop, which is very funny. Which is like, that's bizarre for a 10-year-old to have that ambition. Anyway, I went and worked at Deloitte for a couple of years. And when I was probably in close to the end of my first year there, my husband and I went on a ski trip to Winter Park to go visit our friends that were living there. And we had a nightmare of a time getting there with our equipment, with our ski. I have skis, my husband snowboards, and we have these big, big human-sized long boxes that you take with you. And there's lots of kind of annoyances that go along with traveling with us based on just storing them in your house, getting to the airport in the window of time that you can check the bag and blah, 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 all the things. And I was going to a client meeting on the Monday after our trip. David was going home with our stuff, and we got charged about $400 because David was
Wow.
taking both my skis and his snowboards. And it was after this is kind of death by a thousand cuts experience over the weekend. And he was so fed up. And he basically looked at me and was like, I just wish someone would bring these home for me. And there was something about the way that he said it and the experience that we had. And I remember getting on my flight to Dallas, and he was on his flight to Atlanta. And I could not stop thinking about what he said. And I was obsessed with this, like, yeah, why can't someone take my skis to Winter Park for me, or to Atlanta back for me? Or why can't someone babysit these while I don't need them? They just sit in my basement all day long. Like, that's crazy. Anyway, my brain was spinning, my wheels were turning. And over this, I guess, following series of months, and this is a very long-winded answer to your question, but over the series of months, I basically told myself, if I'm still thinking about this in 30 days, I'll take a step on it. Because I do have the tendency to kind of have lots of big ideas, and I didn't want to do anything, crazy. 30 days, I was still thinking about it. I had done all this like modeling, I had done all this research, all this stuff, and I was like, okay, yes, I'm gonna do something about this. And on the night before my 30th birthday, I opened an LLC. I was like, no, I'm not telling anyone about this. This feels insane. I am nuts, but I'm just gonna do this. It sounds fun. And so I did that. And then over the course of the following year, it turned into a storage and logistics service for oversized outdoor equipment. It was called Rec Porter, which is a terrible name. And Google would always be like, "Did you mean reporter?" I'm like, "No,
Yes.
that's not what I said."
No, reporter, damn it.
Yeah, come on. It was for recreation. It was a whole anyway.
I know, I got
I tried really hard, and after the year that we did that, based on conversations, I had some like initial conversations with some investors. I had done my own kind of really hard thinking on kind of the long term path for this, and also had to marinate a lot on, is this the hard that I want to choose? It doesn't matter if you're baking cookies or building fintech. Like, it's everything about a startup or about owning your business. It's really hard,
right.
and you have to kind of choose the hard that you want to take on, and shipping and storage and security and all that just was not my journey. And so I decided to kind of take a beat. And it was a really tough time for me because I felt like I had failed. I did not want to give up on the startup. I felt like I'd finally found the thing that I wanted to run a million miles an hour at. I was still working at Deloitte at this time, so it was very much on nights and weekends. So I still had the security of having my full-time job, but I definitely kind of felt disappointed that I had not found the
It.
thing. And I was kind of looking over the stuff that we had done over the last year, and we had done this big survey, and 2,500 people responded, thanks to Reddit. And we basically were trying to prove that travel was the biggest problem that people had with outdoor and athletic gear. And because I was trying to tell brands, like, travel is the reason that people are renting their skis instead of buying them, or travel is the
Right.
reason that this is the hard.
Help me help you kind of thing. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, this is a pain on your business. Like, maybe we could work together. I need just to prove this.
Right.
And it's probably like not the best practice for user research. We're supposed to kind of go in with open mind. And I was very much going in with an answer I wanted to find. So something I overlooked when we were doing all that research is that there was this huge proportion of our people that basically declared that decision fatigue was the number one reason that people have a hard time making decisions on their gear. That it's really intimidating to make decisions, or, especially for gear that's a really big investment, like skis or
Right.
golf clubs or something. You just don't really know what's going to be right for you. And there's all this conflicting information from the universe about influencers and paid media that's biased. And then there's also, Reddit threads and gear blogs that are just unstructured and giant, and sometimes also kind of driven by affiliate marketing. So it just feels really intimidating, and you end up just asking your friends, but you don't always have a friend for what you need. And basically, again, the wheel started spinning and I started swirling out and over the course of the last year and a half from that point, Bluebird came to be. So, um, Bluebird for, I guess, for listeners that might not be unfamiliar, we're very early, so that would be understandable. Bluebird is a social gear review platform where athletes can review gear in the context of how they actually use it. So you are able to leverage wearable devices to be able to say, I went on this 5 mile run. Here's everything about my run. I wore these Hoka Rahis and I still love them 100 miles in, et cetera, et cetera. Other athletes like me can see what I'm doing, what I'm using, and they're able to kind of have that context to say, oh, I really trust Katie as a runner, maybe because we're similar or because I know her or because we go in the same places or the same distances or whichever. And so just simply seeing what she's using and liking is a really powerful recommendation versus someone trying to necessarily sell me something. And so that's Bluebird. So
which is so cool. It reminds me of Spotify, but for gear. Instead of playlists, it's gear lists.
yeah, it's funny. The moniker I like to use is Goodreads for
Yeah,
gear.
Goodreads. That's better.
If you're familiar with Goodreads, it's basically, I love looking at. There's some readers out there that I know we have the same taste, and so I'll
Right.
usually go to their shelves to be like, all right, what did you like recently? What am I reading next?
That's
It's just a better recommendation.
Yeah, which I love because it just makes everybody it evens the playing field a bit for one to become an influencer. And I think
Yeah,
it's a great democratization of exactly that, of influencing so that,
yeah.
real people as opposed to, shiny happy people being the ones. I hadn't really thought about that. And the name. So you switched it to Bluebird. Bluebird. Tell us about
Blue
that.
Well, the Bluebird with two U's is very simply because it was the most affordable domain available to me. So that one was $14, and that was the one. The name Bluebird in skiing or winter sports and other activities for sure. But there's kind of this concept of a Bluebird day, and it's this day where it snowed the night before, and there's not a cloud in the sky, and you've got perfect conditions and perfect weather, and it just kind of sets you up for this perfect
A
day,
Bluebird day. Yeah.
a Bluebird day. And I really like the idea that if you can optimize the kind of variables in your outdoor or athletic experience, you can kind of create that Bluebird day for anyone, anywhere. And so I really liked the idea of basically giving everyone the opportunity to have their own Bluebird day.
So the thing that also I think is kind of cool too is like the side result of people using it, right? So using your product, and you just said you're helping people get this Bluebird day, this day of
Hmm.
encouraging them when they are going to go outside. Before they might have said, "Oh, I can't do that. It's going to be too strenuous, too cumbersome, too everything." And now they can go with ease and grace. So, it's essentially adventure and well-being intersecting.
Hmm.
And have you seen, like, what is your audience like? Do you know audience breakdown? Because I'm just curious. I'm thinking it's a great opportunity for a lot more women to get out. Not that men don't need to, but that's what we so often have a tendency to sort of pull back and go, oh no, I want to make sure others are taken care of and I can't possibly do what I need to stay behind.
Yeah. So we like to think of our audience or like our target user base as kind of broken up into two groups.
Yeah.
There's folks that are I'm trying to remember the grouping I think we use internally is like the quantified athletes, the person that's like always on their Strava, always measuring on their wearable. They track everything, their VO2 max, all the things. They're always thinking about gear, talking about gear. They're on the gear blogs, they're on the Reddit threads, they're doing all the things.
Right.
Um, those are the people that are going to contribute a lot of content onto Bluebird. And then there's going to be also the athletes that use Bluebird as, as a resource, as a reference to be able to get insights. That first group is probably going to do a bit of both.
Right.
But that first group is really important to be able to provide value for the second, whether or not they're men or women. But what's neat as a female, it's neat for me, just in my own personal lived experience. I like the idea of you used the word democratize earlier, and I really like that. I really like the idea that you can, rather than showing someone who, maybe scaled Everest on the paid ad by XYZ brand, and that's the hiking boots that they used, and you're like, well, I don't really know. I'm just hiking in the outskirts of Atlanta. I don't really know if I need those.
Right. Exactly.
Rather,
Exactly.
you can kind of give folks the ability to kind of relate to other athletes like them, whatever that means to them. Like I might consider a male in Colorado to be like me because we both ski the certain type of terrain in
Right.
Colorado.
Right.
Like it doesn't matter necessarily who he is, but to me, he's the kind of skier is relatable to me. But at the same point, I'm really, really particular about the running bras that I wear. I don't like holding my phone in my hand. I don't like putting them in a pocket because they bounce really badly. I know that there's some folks. I actually heard about a brand at Terry earlier this month that is making like a no bounce belt, but for the most part, it's a huge pain point. And so I really like a sports bra that I can tuck my phone between my
Those
shoulder
are the
blades.
best though.
Yes, they're the best. There's a brand called Cool Down Running that I really like their bras, and I know that Bandit and a couple of other folks also make them with that feature. But it's kind of a personal preference of mine. I am physically built, uniquely to myself, and other women similar to me might find me more or less relatable, and so
Right.
it gives folks the ability to kind of find themselves and see themselves in other athletes and get recommendations from people that they feel truly relatable to. There's always going to be importance and value to like the sponsored athletes and the extreme elite athletes that are
Of
wearing
course.
certain brands and kind of giving that visibility and showing that you can do tough stuff. If it lasts in on an Everest climb, it's probably going to last in your Atlanta hike. But it's helpful as an athlete to kind of make the entire industry seem a little bit more approachable and accessible.
Right.
And
Right.
for the female that might be thinking, I could never backcountry ski and showing someone that's just like them, that's loving backcountry skiing, and also this is what she's using. And maybe it's not the most like sexy brands on the market. Maybe it's just something that they use for something that they got at a secondhand store or something. But it just shows someone I'm actually using this product and it's actually working for me in my unique circumstances. I always say that there's three variables. There's your body, there's your environment, and your gear. And those are the three variables that make your experience.
Right.
And if you can just give folks that little snapshot picture into what's actually happening out in the wild, it gives people a little bit better information so that they might feel more compelled to try a new product, try a new sport, try a new place. And kind of to the point you were getting at earlier, it's having maybe opening up the opportunity for adventure to mean something new to people.
Well, yeah, because that's what's and that sort of that also the personalization I know is a big part of your Bluebird's DNA. So, what do you see as the biggest mistake people make when they try to match themselves with gear or lifestyles? And how does your
Yeah.
approach change that? Because you kind of
Yeah.
touched a little bit upon that, but I'm just curious.
I think it's easy to think that in order to do something, you have to have this like suite of all the best products or all the hottest brands, or you have to spend an outrageous amount of money on products. And there are definitely sports that are not inexpensive to perform for sure. Maybe just on the amount of stuff you need versus, going on a jog in Atlanta and going on a skiing, you need just more things going up the mountain. But it's definitely it can be intimidating to see folks on the internet, whether that's influencers or ads or whichever, and you're like, man, I don't see myself in that person, or I can't afford that whole suite of stuff. Like, therefore, I can't do this activity. I don't think that's true. And so to be able to show someone like I ran a half marathon in my old Nike shorts and they worked out just fine. I was fine, like I they performed for me fine. That's not what I use, but just as an example. I think that personalization, there's so much out there right now with the use of AI, and I'm happy to speak to kind of high level what we're doing with AI for sure. But Bluebird's whole kind of purpose is keeping a human in the loop of that AI recommendation. And so AI can maybe help find a really similar person to me to say, hey, this person's just like you. You can see what she's using, what she's wearing, what she's doing. And you're able to kind of glean insights or I guess make decisions on your own of what personalization works for you or what recommendations feel personal to you.
Let's kind of keep building on the AI part because one of the things I know you guys do is you blend the whole tech and human experience, right? So it's data
Mhm.
plus recommendation and then real outdoor culture. So how do you balance algorithmic, say that 3 times, with human intuition?
Yeah. I think because again, it's that human in the loop. Like I can choose on Bluebird, to follow someone that I find to be relatable. Bluebird might help me find someone or some product or some location, activity, etc., that is potentially fit for me, like me, interesting to me. But you also have the ability to kind of make decisions for yourself. I I, for example, am absolutely nothing like some of the running influencers that I think are awesome and are do amazing things and run amazing distances. I have never run a marathon, for example. I would love to, haven't. I still think what marathon runners use and do is really interesting, and I can find and follow those people. I can make those choices for myself, and I think that it's important to be able to give the user the ability to both produce and provide their own context so that what you receive back is personalized to you, but also the ability for them to be able to kind of say, "Thanks for this recommendation, Bluebird, but also I wanna go and find and follow my friends or my idols or my
Right.
things that I might find as inspiring or interesting or whichever." So, it's definitely not just a cut and dry, we're feeding you things we think are right for you, it's also we're giving you the option to kind of explore so that you can have the most personal experience, whatever that means to you.
I wanna kinda talk about you and your experience as a founder. Start to get
Yeah,
lovely shift, right?
yeah,
What's been a moment where you had to trust your instincts over conventional wisdom? And then
yeah.
what did it teach you about leadership?
So it's the end of the year. We're about to be at the end of 2025, and I've been doing a lot of reflecting. That was kind of my rather than resolutions, I kind of like to do a little bit of a retrospective personally over the last year. And this has by far been the most difficult year of my whole life. It's been really, really tough. Not because things have been bad, but it's just definitely pushed me in a way that I did not anticipate. I think that for my experience with fundraising definitely forced me to get better at trusting myself and my instinct and my intuition and all the things. I think that I'm almost grateful that I went through this first foray with fundraising because building a startup is like looking in the mirror. Like you are left to it. It's just you. No one's coming to save you.
Yeah.
So you are left to face yourself for all your good and all your bad. And I am really, really grateful for the challenge to basically say, you're basically going to be doubted and you're going to be rejected and you're going to be turned down more times than you could ever imagine. And that's not me. That's just that, or that's not just me. It is definitely me. But it's also every other entrepreneur goes through this. It's just, if you're building something new, people are going to reject it. Like innovation comes from people, things that are unusual or whatever. But you then, if you are going to move forward, if you are going to succeed, through that rejection, you have to make the decision that I still trust myself. I still think I'm right. I still believe in myself. I still believe in this and I'm going to do it anyway. And it's really, really hard when people every single day are telling you this is a waste of your time or I don't get it or I don't see it or whichever. And you have to really believe in yourself and you have to say, I know this is the signals on the outside are not telling me this, but I have to I'm gonna go for it anyway, and it gives you so much power and confidence to be able to see what happens when you push through that, and so now I feel like a completely different person than I was a year ago. I feel so much more confident in myself. I feel I approach criticism and feedback and I guess doubts or, anything external opinions. I approach them really differently. I still definitely take them in, but I don't necessarily let it crush me the way that it maybe historically did. And so I think that it's really important for any entrepreneur going through this to kind of be mentally prepared for the fact that you're going to get loads of rejection. It's just part of the deal. But you also are allowed to trust yourself and say, no, you're wrong. And I'm right. And I'm going to go prove it to you. So it's not like a super precise answer of one moment, but I would say throughout this year, both kind of through raising money or trying to, build this in the industry or whichever, just learning to really say, I believe in what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing is the right thing and yeah, trusting yourself.
Yeah, I think, by the sounds of it, going through, frankly, it's like a washing cycle where you go round and round, and then you have a minute come up for air, and then you're sucked back, and it gives you this chance, I think, to really develop a deep resolve.
Mhm.
You just, "I know what I know." And I bet there's also a time because thin line between that and being stubborn. And I
Mhm.
say that part because a little someone I know is that way, and I'm perpetually reminded of it. So, which is a good thing, but are there certain things like practices or I know you used to teach yoga. I mean, what are some
Mhm.
things you do to kind of get yourself centered when you're incredibly overwhelmed and everything's coming at you 5, different ways and nothing's really sort of turning out the way you thought it was going to?
Yeah. I love this question. We joked at coffee. This is the woo adjacent part of the conversation that I love.
Yes.
Um, the So I'm big into practicing yoga, big into meditation. I would definitely say this was the year that I needed it the most and practiced it the least. Like I definitely learned the importance of taking care of yourself. Just like the point I made earlier about, it's just you, no one's coming to save you. Like no one's gonna say, okay, Katie, you're allowed to go take an hour for yourself today. So you have to have the ability to say, I'm gonna go take care of my brain, I'm gonna take care of my body, I'm gonna go take care of my spirit, whatever. So very much 2026 Katie is going to be much more well than she was in 2025. I stepped away from teaching this year just because it got to be a lot, and something with teaching is really important is you have to be able to have the capacity to kind of, give to your students, but also to it's a lot of emotional energy that kinda happens in that experience, and I am in a place in my life where I really need to be the student. So, I stepped away from teaching. Beyond yoga and meditation, running is definitely the most powerful activity that has driven my mindset as an entrepreneur. I There's so many ties you can make to running and building a startup. It's actually quite funny. Whether it's something that I say to myself as kind of a mantra of sorts when I'm running, because I kind of consider running to be a meditation for myself in general. You know, I get to decide if it's uncomfortable or it's impossible. And it usually helps me get out of bed when it's cold and I don't want to, or it helps me, run that last mile when quitting sounds nice. Definitely always listening to your body and obviously taking things in stride for sure. But it's really interesting if you can ask yourself, like, is it uncomfortable or is it impossible? How much more you can do or, like, how much more is possible, and beyond the fact that running, especially with no music and just truly being with your mind for an hour, definitely gets into a state of you can work out all your thoughts and you can kind of just spend time chewing on everything that's going on in your mind. It's also such a neat I don't know, it's a neat kind of microcosm of the startup experience because it's gonna hurt, it's gonna be uncomfortable. You're not really in it for the end, like, you're kind of in it for the journey.
Right.
And I think I really like that about running and how it can kind of train your brain to be at peace with, sometimes you're gonna have runs and they're gonna suck, and sometimes you're gonna have days at the startup that are really gonna suck, but other days you have these amazing runs and you feel like you just feel, like, unstoppable, and you prove to yourself that you can do really hard things, and, certainly there's other sports where I'm sure you could equate this to. I can baseline just ride a bike, but people that are into cycling, I'm sure it's similar experience. I just think that running has done something really incredible for my mindset to prove to myself, like, you can do things that you may have thought were not possible to you, so
To me, I agree with the running piece for sure when I was running because I think it just I don't know, there's a steady rhythm just as there is
Mhm.
so I've switched to swimming, but it's the same kind of thing.
Totally.
You get to choose there's a certain amount of response mechanism you have. You can go fast, you can go slow, you can walk, different things, just like with swimming, there's different things, and you're right, it is a lot like, running a business and going through all of that,
Yeah,
and knowing when to stop and take a breath,
totally.
just all of it, and I think it's terrific to have an outlet like that. I had a teacher who always talked about the 4 types of meditation, and in that case, walking/running is definitely it's why Steve Jobs always did it. That
Yeah,
was, they often say too, when you're feeling overwhelmed and you're insecure and you're having a momentary of or 2 of self-doubt, it's just go run or walk amidst the forest and trees because
yeah,
it will witness you, and all of a sudden you'll say, "Oh, yeah, now I remember." And
totally.
it's where a lot of most of the innovation comes from during that time when you're just in that zone. So, I think that's awesome. Also, running is great 'cause doesn't Bluebird have a running club?
We We
Or
dabbled with a running club early
okay,
in the
there you
day.
go, that's fair. Well,
We
it's early
we
days.
tried. Yes, it's funny. That was earlier this year, and I don't know why I thought that January was, like, the month to try and do that. It was, like, 20 degrees outside. It was freezing. I still have a lot of aspirations to get a run club together, especially because I see such a massive, uh, opportunity, but I also see the incredible importance of building community into your business. I think community is a feature. I think it is something where it also can be a moat, it can be a distribution network, like, it could be so many things for your business. But it also just puts a human element to your business where people feel like they belong and users understand that they are a part of this just as much as the technology is. We tried the run club. There's a lot of run clubs in Atlanta. So I was trying to figure out, are we something that supports other run clubs? Are we our own run club? What are we doing with that? So TBD, 2026 has some plans. Stay tuned for that. But in general, I'm really, really excited to see where community can kind of build in our business because to me, the entire purpose of Bluebird being valuable is athletes kind of sharing their experiences on the platform. And so to me, like Bluebird is really nothing unless the users have a voice and they have it, they're part of it. And so it's kind of knitting that together. It's going to be a really exciting part of once we launch, which is very soon.
Well,
So
yeah, absolutely. So you've got the tech, but the tech is worthless
without the people.
without the people, without both the users, but also really without the
Yeah.
content, because that's the thing.
Yeah.
I could totally see Bluebird ending up partnering with a bunch of the different run clubs, choosing different run club influencers and then having them, make their recommendations, and then actually other running clubs going, "Oh my gosh, that guy from or that woman from over that club does this. We should try that." I think that's a really interesting idea. I could see that really, really being a great
Yeah.
way too to broaden the community and have people, because sometimes clubs are so homogeneous, and I think it's
Mm,
kind of nice to intermingle different clubs so that you end up having these serendipitous moments and meet significant strangers who you normally would never have any orbital crossover with, and then seeing what
yeah.
ends up happening.
Yeah, it's something I learned when we tried to do our own club was, it was a nice lesson in the, like, if you're trying to be everything for everyone, you're nothing to no or whatever the phrasing is. What's neat about at least the Atlantis Run Club ecosystem, if you will, is there's lots of different clubs that serve lots of different, I guess, interests or type, whichever. There's run clubs that meet really early in the morning because they're trying to go before work. There's run clubs that run on trail only. There's run clubs that have like 300 people and it's mostly for social interaction. There's lots of different kind of what people are trying value props for different run
The
clubs.
whys. Yeah.
Yeah, and so part of when I was thinking about, are we gonna have a run club or are we something that's gonna support other communities? I'm thinking about the latter because at the end of the day, I want everyone to be able to get what they want out of their experience, but Bluebird should be there, supporting you, side
Along
character.
the
So
way.
yeah, exactly. So I've got some fun ideas for what that kind of looks like for next year, but that's TBD. So
Okay. Well, Dangle, just tease us with that little carrot. Um, I'm just curious. Okay. So, and along those lines, you've, referenced 2025 was a rough, challenging, sorts of surprising things came about. So, with that in mind, what's the bravest thing you've done as a founder, personally or professionally?
the bravest thing. Oh my
That your
goodness.
past self would have said, "What? No way. I can't imagine that I could
Um,
possibly even starting it. Who knows?"
I was gonna say I think do like this is probably a terrible answer, but I would say just truly doing the thing
Yeah.
is something that Katie a couple of years ago would have completely balked at. I think that and it helps for any aspiring curious entrepreneurs out there that are like, I could never, but people will sometimes say to me like, it's so brave what you're doing. I could never. And I always want to be like, if I can do it, you can definitely do it. And that's not a self-deprecating comment, but it's more my experience with, I remember sitting on the couch and going to LegalZoom and opening the LLC.
Oh,
Like I didn't even say anything to my husband. I think it was like $250 and I just did it. And I think sometimes people think it's this decision to do this huge thing in one moment, and you have to be so brave and you have to be so smart. Obviously, you have to be brave, you have to be smart, all these things. I'm not in no way am I trying to diminish the power of all entrepreneurs that have done incredible things. But it is also this kind of like little win series where maybe one day it's that I'm going to simply just I remember being really scared to tell my best girlfriends that I opened the LLC because I felt
Did the thing.
crazy. Yeah, I was like, this is they're gonna think I'm nuts. Like, I have a great job, I have a great stable life. Like, I'm being so silly. And then it just over time kind of gradually builds where kind of like a compounding interest situation. Like, I have an incredible team of people who show up for Bluebird every single day, and we have a product that's real, and we have, I remember we went to our first trade show earlier this month, and it was a really, really, really humbling experience to be sitting in that room and being like, "Oh my gosh, this is a real." It still kind of blows my mind when you see Bluebird written anywhere because you're like, "That's a real thing. That's out there in the wild." I kind of have like two takeaways from that feeling. It's one is that, absolutely nothing is my own doing alone. Like, I would never be here without the people on my team, every single person that supported me, my best friends that, hold me when I've had a really horrible day, my husband that is so patient, my dog that is typically next to me in every meeting he's there right now. I think it's really important, A, to know that this is very much supported by the power of the village, but also if you have the ability, rather than saying, I'm going to go build a startup, if you have the ability to just take one teeny, teeny, teeny step forward in the direction of the startup, you can totally do that. And if you continue to take those teeny tiny steps, then it eventually can turn into something really amazing. I don't know if you've ever read, I don't know if you've ever read or listened to the Atomic Habits book. Have you read that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just for the first time, I'm listening to that right now. It's my current run book. And he basically, in the very beginning of the book yesterday, was talking about how if you changed on a flight from, I think, like LA to New York or something like that, if you changed I'm probably getting this very wrong, but if you change the direction of the plane's nose by like 3 degrees, it changes your landing place from New York to Washington, D.C. And so it's like 7 feet of a difference in California gets you like 300 miles of a difference in on the other coast. And I think that if you can just think about what that tiny, tiny little degree changes in your current moment, it's not as scary and it's not as impossible as it seems to go think about, I'm going to go do the end result, which does seem quite intimidating and still does to me. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. No, I think I definitely think that's true. I think we make so many times we make things so much harder and bigger and more complex than they need to be. It's literally you just need to do this one thing. And the more
Yeah.
comfortable, it also gets you more prepared and ready because when you've started to take a few of those one thing steps, right? You
Yeah.
look back and go, "Oh my God, remember how I used to feel way back there?
Yeah.
I so did that.
Yeah.
So, of course, I can do this and this and this." And I think it's a great
Totally.
way of a nice gingerly way of building up, confidence and also just familiarity and ease with unknown. Because I
Yeah.
swear, if you get comfortable with that and just saying, "Okay, I know I'm gonna figure it out, something's gonna happen. Do I need to know exactly what's gonna happen? No. So maybe I don't need to have control over this, and I know that I trust myself, and I'm gonna make the right response and the right answer, and
Yeah.
for some reason, if it isn't, I'm gonna address it when that happens, and I know I'll end up okay."
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because yesterday I was literally having this exact conversation with a guy on my team. His name is Sean. He and I were talking about the high highs and the low lows of, especially in the early days, things can feel so volatile. And you can have this amazing breakthrough and you can also have this like huge setback and it can feel really, really scary. And it's neat when your brain starts to approach the setbacks rather than thinking like, okay, I'm doomed. This is doomed. I failed. It's rather just, okay, like how do I approach this? What's the next step forward? And if you can continue to just practice that like one more step forward mentality rather than thinking I have to go find myself at the end, it makes everything feel it doesn't make the low lows feel any better, but it makes everything feel more possible and manageable for sure.
Yeah. Agreed, agreed. I think definitely one of the things that I've found myself getting in the habit of is feeding my little curiosity and kind of
Mm,
approaching things from that angle with that in mind and sort of from a place of, huh, I wonder what I'm going to learn from this. And that's what I
mhm.
try to say immediately when something, fabulous has happened, and especially when something like completely negative and hideous upon first
Right.
looks.
Yeah.
And more often than not, I come to realize, wow, thank God that horrible thing happened to me. It was a way of saving me from myself and my own suffering,
Totally.
right?
Yeah, I mean, there have been some real lows in
They'll
the
be there.
last yeah, and there's still going to be in the last I mean, I've been doing this now if you include from the very, very beginning, I've been doing this now for 2.5 years, and there have been some moments where I was down pretty bad, and now, to your point, I look back and I think, like, I wouldn't be here if that had not happened, and also to your point earlier, you kinda show up for yourself, you're like, "Damn, like, if I
Yeah,
can get through that, I can get through other stuff." It does give you a sense of confidence and resilience of knowing I'm less afraid of the hard stuff as we move forward because we have successfully survived hard stuff in the past. So, I am very grateful, excuse me, for the, mindset and kind of mental toughness that you do acquire.
yeah, you do. And I will also just say finally, and then I'll put a fork in this and say, okay, that's done. But I will also say that I think another thing that I often look at is like, "Oh, thank God I got this learning out of the way early."
Mhm.
So, yes, but it goes beyond failing fast. It's just, I would say, early things that, get these things out of the way so that as you get, they're gonna get bigger and bigger, but you're gonna have better things to reference to in terms
Yeah,
of and frankly, some of your early mistakes can steer you out from making massively huge mistakes if you had kept on that bad trail.
totally.
Well, so are and family balance, I know those are all things that are of mind, and
Mm.
maybe we'll have a separate conversation of that later, on a subsequent or maybe at the upcoming Women Advancing Summit that will happen in October of 2026, thank you. But I'm just curious, what are 2 or 3 little tips you would have for people who are contemplating or who are founders right now in terms of getting through, and helping them see their way through and not giving up?
So, the first I would say is try to separate yourself or at least get comfortable with embarrassment. There's so much can be made more possible if you can get over yourself. I remember in the early days, I'm like, "Oh gosh, like I don't wanna post on social media that I'm trying this new crazy thing that hasn't even been formed yet because people are gonna think I'm crazy."
Right. Ego
And
gets you every
for
time.
ego, you have to and then again, it's important to be able to kind of really get deep on your ego too and think about, like, is this something that am I basically in my own way? Because at the end of the day, if you can get over yourself and be comfortable with failing in public, failing, looking potentially a little bit funny or kooky or whichever you wanna call it. If you're comfortable with that, you can make a lot more progress because it's not a real barrier, it's your own barrier, it's you are in that is you getting in your own way, and I would actually argue that, if it's your peers or it's your family or whichever, they might actually find you inspiring or admiring. And if you can inspire someone to do something that might find scary or embarrassing, it makes everybody feel more comfortable. It's kind of like those if you can be the first couple on the dance floor at the wedding, everybody else follows you because they're like, oh, well, people are dancing. It's not fun to be the first couple, but it's actually relieving to everybody else. And
Absolutely.
so
Take it for the
if you
team.
yes, take one for the team, be brave, get over yourself, I think is the funny phrasing I'll use. The second is to definitely remember that you are a critical part of the business that you have to take care of as well. It was a really hard adjustment for me to go from working in a full-time corporate job to working for myself in that, at work, there was like a time I was expected to log in and there was a time that it was kind of socially acceptable to leave or, there was time that was mine and there was time that was works. And when you're working for yourself or you're building your own thing, that line is invisible basically.
Yeah.
And this year was really tough for me from a well-being standpoint. Like I said earlier, I used to practice 5 times a week, and I used to meditate every single day, and I used to run I was so good, and it was if you had told me you'll let that slip in the past, I would have thought you were crazy, but now no one's gonna come to your desk and say, "You have an hour to go take care of yourself," or, "You are allowed to go to this book club with your friends," or there's obviously always gonna be sacrifices, that's part of the deal, but if you don't fill your cup, it is going to be to the detriment of your business. And so being really mindful about prioritizing yourself, even if it's for 15 minutes a day of just going on a walk or getting really creative with the way that you operate. You are the one that gets to make the rules. And so take a meeting in your headphones and go walk around your neighborhood. Or, if you're trying to think through things, you don't have to sit at your desk. You can go on a hike and like noodle in a way that works for you or whatever. I'm sure that people have their own ways, but you have to fill your cup and you have to take care of yourself because a a happy, healthy founder is what supports a strong, resilient business. So, would recommend that. And I guess the third is if you want to do it, you can. I think that I always assumed you had to be a certain type of person, a certain type of with a certain background or a certain amount of wins to be able to go be this entrepreneur. And I'll never forget, I was on a run we do this founder funder jog in Atlanta, and I was on a run with this woman who works in DC, and her startup is I think it's Ecolytics, and her name is Hazel, and I hope she hears this. But she had been full time on her job, and I was still working at Deloitte. And I remember being absolutely mind boggled that she had taken the leap and was full time. Like that's crazy! I can't even imagine ever doing that. And I think that it took me longer than I should have to trust and believe in myself to be able to say this is something that I could do. And I hope that people know that again, it's not a huge jump. It's not some brilliant breakthrough. It's really just tiny little compounding decisions to move one step forward every single day. Even if it's just, I'm going to go talk to a friend about this idea, or I'm going to go spend 30 minutes after work researching something. And every single day, if you commit to moving forward every single day, it does become something that's real and possible for you. And it's a lot more possible than you might think. So if I can do it, you can do it.
Well, and also the way you were just describing, the needs of setting up boundaries and things like that, that is exactly what you need to do when one is debating, do I start a family or not?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Everybody who already has gone through that, you already have practice because that's really what it is. If the mothership goes down, the whole shooting match is done. So,
Yeah.
well, Katie, I so look forward to seeing how Bluebird really takes off and
Oh,
soars to all new heights this in 2026. I have a really good
thank
feeling this is
you.
gonna be your year on a lot of
Thank
different
you.
fronts. I said
I hope
just that
so.
no, I mean it, and I seriously thank you for making the time and sharing your pearls
Oh,
with, all the listeners for Women Advancing.
oh
So
my gosh. I
cheers,
could talk to you
cheers.
forever.
Mm. Back at you, sister, and you'll get a chance to in
Yes.
October of 2026. All right, enough snack mumble. But seriously, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers to Bluebird. Here, cheers to everything you do.
That's perfect. Thanks.
Thanks. I love listening to founders like Katie Begando of Bluebird, who had the gumption and courage to take a leap from a comfortable corporate job. We've heard it before, and really deciding to scratch that itch that she had, and then hence creating and filling a gap with Bluebird. To me, key takeaways are, whew, you don't have to do it in one foul swoop. Move forward one step every day. And by doing so, next thing you know, not only will you take traction, but you'll also be more prepared for whatever needs to take place next. Everything will seem a lot less scary. Second is make those boundaries early for yourself, for self-care, separate it, and get creative with what that can look like. You can do thinking and noodling and musing and brainstorming while going on a run and getting some physical exercise and peace of mind. So be sure to get that in right out the gate. And then, you know, be comfortable with the fact of just totally relying a lot on yourself, um, because no one is going to come and save you. That's not to say you don't have a village to support you, but it does say in the end, you're the one who chooses to accept that assistance and that help. Finally, for the company, community is really so huge for the future. I know for the most part, everybody really knows that. But I think with a platform like Bluubird that is democratizing the ability of becoming an influencer, I think it's so important and powerful. And in this day, perhaps maybe that is what makes technology more humane and it reintroduces us to each other. And with that, I will say see you later and look forward to our next conversation on women advancing.
Thanks for listening. May this episode inspire you to move forward. Be sure to go to iTunes, Spotify, katebyrne.co, that's KATEBYRNE.co, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, and listen to even more episodes. Here's to strong women. May we know them, may we be them, may we raise them. Be sure to meet them on the next Women Advancing. Ta till next time.